There have been many studies done that show disparities in media coverage for missing person cases. The Black and Missing Foundation says that cases of missing Black and brown individuals stay unresolved 4 times longer than those of white individuals. So when it comes to missing people, it could appear that Black lives matter less in the media than white lives. In the final part of this 2-part series, I will sit down with journalist Rodney Brown to discuss not only his experience covering Dominique's case, but also why some cases like Dom's are often overlooked in the media. I'm your host, Madison Scott, and these are the unsolved cases of Monroe County. In 2004, the late journalist Gwen Ifill was the first to famously name the term missing white women syndrome, a term that describes how the intersections of race and gender play a role in the disparities in media coverage for missing person cases. For Dominique Grisham, his case wasn't picked up by any media outlets until about 2 years after his disappearance. Today, I am joined by Dominique's mother, Wetzel, and journalist Rodney Brown, who was the first to report on Dominique's case. Thank you both so much for being here today to speak with me and, share your experiences on this. I am so appreciative of you both. So, Wetzel, I'll direct my first question to you. Before Rodney covered his case, what was your experience? I know we touched a little bit on it in the last episode, but what was your experience like trying to get coverage for Dominique's case locally here in Rochester and Monroe County?
Horrible. There will be some days, like I will say, if I'm doing an event, can the media come out, just to put it on the news? Well, we'll have to see if we have a journalist available that day or if we have a reporter or camera crew available that day. Don't get me wrong, some events they showed up, some events they didn't. But, it was just horrible. But I still went on because as his mother, that's what I was gonna do.
Now, between 2009 and 2012, we know he was labeled a runaway. So when you went to these news outlets in between that time, did they say anything about him being a runaway, playing into why they couldn't cover it? Because I know sometimes police, media needs like that go-ahead from police.
Yeah, that's what it was. They would tell me, well, we could cover it or we could come to the event, but like you said, they had to get the okay from the Rochester Police Department to come. And to me, I thought it was maybe because they thought, oh, he ran away, it's not nothing big, he'll come back. But to me, as his mother, I knew he didn't run away. So for me to do the event, I wanted the coverage, but they had to get the okay or permission or say it was okay to cover the story or even actually be there until I took the matters into my own and was like, whether they come or not, this is something that I'm going to do for my child.
Mm-hmm. Now, Rodney, how did you first hear about Dominique's case, and why do you think other media outlets here locally didn't report on it?
Well, this memory served me well. Dominique Casca was, I think, about 2 years after he was missing that his mother, Moselle, contacted me. And the reason that she was contacting me is because that she couldn't get nobody to listen to her about the case. And this by word of mouth through the community, everybody understand my role as a journalist. I look for those type of stories because I want to be a journalist of the voiceless. I want to be a journalist of the ones that don't be heard. And so I just feel that's part of the creed of being a journalism. So she found her way to me through word of mouth, and that was great that she found and she came in, she told me about it, and I didn't ask questions, I listened. And it was just like she said, nobody wanted to listen to her. And that's why she was sitting there in front of me. Nobody wanted to listen to her, and this is 2 years later. And so that was kind of striking to me. But why doesn't the story get picked up by other news outlets? Why does it take a minority own newspaper to only be the one that would even think about reporting on these stories. It shouldn't be like that. But it's seriously, when I think about it, Madison, I seriously think about it in the reality way, what really is going on. What really is going on is like most institutions that serve the public that are responsible in our communities to protect and serve, most of the institutions are not diversified. Most of the institutions, especially in the media, you might see one or two black anchor or Latino anchor, but it all starts with the station manager, where we have no, should I say, people of African or Latino descent in these positions, even though that the news station is in a city that's majority, predominantly minority, which is black and brown people. But still, the news station doesn't reflect that. So your stories come out is not going to be reflecting of the community. So therefore, it's got a lot to do with socioeconomic backgrounds. A lot of people that run these stations does not have the socioeconomic background to be able to see the importance or see the empathy that this should be that should be granted to anyone in any situation, whether you black or white. And that is just the creed of journalism. And when that doesn't happen, then we know that it's racism that's coming into the picture. It could be intentional racism, or it could be racism that we would call, well, the new word is passive racism, because, oh, I just don't know that what I was doing or what I was saying, I just don't know. Because why? You don't have the same socioeconomic background that will have that light bulb come on and say, hey, I got to have just as much empathy as I would have covering any other story. Mm-hmm. So it's a big problem with diversity, and I don't think anyone is trying to do anything about that diversity thing in news, in media. And until that happens, until we get some type of diversity in media, especially in the station manager position that assigns stories, then we're never going to get the fair account that black, white, green, red, that everybody should get the same, should I say, the same coverage as someone that just white.
Yeah, exactly, especially because, you know, Brittany Drexel went missing 2 months after, and her case blew up, whereas that's what originally drew me to Dominique's case, because I saw that date that you went missing 2 months before, and I never had heard of his, but I heard of Brittany's, so that was what instantly drew me to his case. But when Wetzel first came into your office to tell you this, and you were first sitting there with her and hearing about it, what was your reaction? What were you thinking at that time about this? And did you contact the Rochester Police Department? What did they say?
Well, when I heard it, I said, oh, it's the same old thing. I said, this is nothing new. This is contemporary, that someone that of African-American descent or Latino descent will be turned away and treated like it's not important. So it didn't surprise me at all. And when I did get the officer a call down there who was leading the case, I think his name was Brennan, and he was just as callous as he was with a mourning moms. With me, he was just as callous. He was more trying to convince me. He wanted more trying to convince me that it was not worth writing the story. That was his tactic. He was more trying to find excuses why he shouldn't be looking as hard as he's looking. And most of those excuses were stereotypical in my point of view. Here you are seeing a black woman here coming to you and asking for help on a grave, serious case, and you could not come to the bat. You could not come to the bat and bat that ball and hit it out the park. It was hard for you to do it, so you started making up excuses. Why was it so hard for you to just go ahead with the case and do it? But it was hard for him to do it, so he wanted to make excuses why he shouldn't do it. And that made me want to do the story even more.
Of course.
Right, because not only that, the big story is losing her son. The other big story is that we have police officers that are willing to not do their job and are willing to pretty much not do it and say, I don't care. And what can you do about it? Exactly. Nothing. So that's what was going on.
They're picking and choosing. It seems that they're picking and choosing which cases they put which resources to and which ones, you know, they send out to the media, because the police officers are that gatekeeper for which ones they send to the major news stations. Do you think that labeling Dominique as a runaway at first, when he first disappeared, has to do with those stereotypes, and do you think that played a role into that?
Well, I'm not a proponent. I'm not a big proponent of Black Lives Matter, but that is true. You know, when it comes to that, Black lives doesn't matter as much as someone that's Caucasian. So that's what it always been. I mean, this is historical. This is a historical thing in the United States, that Black lives are lesser than white lives. So I mean, this goes back all the way to when we have systems put in place of Jim Crow. We have systems of segregation. You know, these systems are still lingering around today. And those systems let us know and let the world know that Black lives don't matter, because those systems are still alive right here today.
Well, thank you so much. We are going to take a quick break, but stay tuned, because coming up, you will see an exclusive interview with some of the investigators from RPD's Missing Persons Unit on the process of investigating missing person cases. We'll be right back.
Rockport manufacture masterpieces out of students, striving for perfection and pursuit of excellence. The experience elevated my mental to brilliance. Check the middle stakes were high in the ranks and accredited. Diverse and welcoming, heartwarming, loving and caring. Students and professors' relationships is rather pleasant. Our programs produce scholars, so when you graduate, competition is none. You're receiving the top dollar. We shine like the sun at high noon. We golden eagles, spread our wings to watch the soar to the moon. We embrace success. We never encourage people to fail. Come to Brockport, aspire, engage, and excel. My name is Amin Patah, and I attend the college at Brockport.
Hello and welcome back to the Unsolved Cases in Monroe County. I am Madison Scott. Last fall, when I first started looking into Dominique's case, I reached out to the Rochester Police Department to get their perspective. I was told that since it is still an ongoing investigation, the officers assigned to his case would not be able to speak with me. But two officers, investigators Seth Carr and Sergeant Robert Wetzel from the RPD's Missing Persons Unit, offered to meet and share their experiences working in the unit. In this next clip, you will see Sergeant Wetzel explaining some of the process behind investigating missing person cases like Dom. Take a look.
To, you know, perform the investigation and to be effective in the investigation, but on the same side, they need to be that counselor. But ultimately, there is that balance of what they can share and what they can't share. And for a lot of these investigators, they're becoming part of the family, or they're becoming attached, and that's where, when I mentioned earlier about how they're very possessive of their cases, it's because their heart's in the job. Ultimately the goal is to make the arrest, to find the suspect, but again, they're held to a very high standard when it comes into the court of law, so they want to be 100% sure that when they identify who their individual is that they're looking to charge, with a crime, that they're confident, that is. But it is an emotional struggle for everyone, because you don't realize doing it year after year after year how many families you're involved with, how many people that you've given that sense of security that you are working the case. Both Seth and Lori are in contact with family members daily on cases that could be 10 to 15 years old, and sometimes it's just to check in, sometimes it's, hey, just want to see how you're doing, and they might not even mention anything about the case, but it's sort of something that you had touched on in regards to what does the police department do to maintain lines of communication. It could be social media, it could be sending emails, it could be a phone call, it could be a text message. There's a lot of opportunity for that, but the investigators really do a fantastic job of really juggling and balancing the information that they have, the information they're trying to get, but also provide the family with a sense of my case is not forgotten.
So Moselle, after seeing that clip, What would you say was the biggest difference between how Sergeant Wetzel says these cases are supposed to be handled compared to how your son's case was actually handled by the investigators assigned to it?
Oh God, wrong. You know, he says, you know, that they will contact you. And this is the honest to God truth. It didn't even have to be on Dominique's birthday or anniversary. I will have to call them first. Nobody will call me to see how I'm doing, to say, okay, Moselle, we're calling to check on you. We know today's Dominique's birthday, how you're doing. None of that. I received none of that. And I like I said previously, I didn't even know my lead investigator, John Brennan, retired. I found out that through you. I got more phone calls and text messages from you than I did from RPD. That's just not true at all. And it was frustrating to hear that clip as it was frustrating to hear Brennan clip on the last show that I did. It's a slap in the face. Mm-hmm. And if I can really say what I want to say, RPD, that it was a lie. Never reach out. And to this day, even after 13 years. And the sad part about it was they knew I was coming to Rochester. You think anybody besides Lynette Adams or you reached out to say, oh, you want to come down and introduce me to an investigator, introduce me to an officer? No, nothing. So no, with what they should do and what they did it did not add up at all.
Mm-hmm. Now, Rodney, after reporting on this case and seeing how this has played out into now 2022, do you believe that his case was handled differently than other cases you might have seen before locally here in Rochester?
Most definitely. I mean, the earlier that you can get on missing cases, the more chances that the person's going to be alive. The more time that you waste on cases, mm-hmm. the more chance that you could lose that loved one. So it's always, I don't even get it. If a child, say a child is missing, you throw an Amber Alert out or anything to say the child is missing. Nobody don't need to roll the dice and say it might not be missing, and then we got to wait a while. I don't even think that it happened like that with Brittany Drexel or any of those who was in the news at that time, mm-hmm. When Dominique went missing. So it was on the news every day. I don't think they waited any time, And you could talk about Gabby. When that case, as soon as that they was right on that, and I think that Dominique and every other black child should get the same. If you look at the FBI statistics on missing children, that you see that it's more black children, by hundreds of thousands, missing, over 2 or 3 years, mm-hmm. than whites. The kids that are being missing are kids of color, but they get the less coverage. And the statistics shows that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually found a study that was done back in 2016 that looked at 4 major news organizations, and they concluded that there's a significant underrepresentation of missing black and brown individuals in the media. So I know we touched on this earlier, but do you think that this is a real problem, not just nationally, but here in Monroe County?
Oh, yes. Monroe County media is so underdiversified, mm-hmm. just like any other place. They do not have the staff in there. I work with daily newspapers up in Rochester here also. I'm not calling any name, but they do not have the staff in the right place that will be able to deliver to a community that's predominantly minority. And you can't, in this day and world, you got to have a diversified newsroom if you're planning on doing diversified stories.
Exactly, representation matters.
Representation matters. And what's so sad, and I know that, I don't want to make it out a systematic thing, but just make it out a reality thing. Mm-hmm. All those 3 things that would make it right for Dominique, all the things that would make it right for Dominique to get that attention. The news had to be diversified, especially in the station manager way, that they be able to do diversified stories because you got the people that's black and brown in your studio. And the police department is over 80% Caucasian that don't live in the city, that coming into the city that's more than 85% black and brown. So These two dynamics alone, it will make it hard for any person of color to get the child found, or any person of color to probably get the most domestic violence solved the right way. So a lot of things go through these institutions that's not diversified and comes out in a way that's unempathetic. And until these institutions, until we straighten these institutions, not the police department, that we have a diversified police department, we have diversified media. When we have those things, we will have a prosperous, progressive, forward mobility community. But we got to be willing to make that change. And it's 2022, and we still haven't got rid of those remnants that have us having a police department and a media circulation that does not match the community they serve.
So I know in the Need to Know interview, you know, you were saying these things, and the investigator who was there with you guys talking about on that interview, he kind of interrupted you and said, like, you know, no, I disagree. We handle all these cases the same, regardless of race, age, anything. So if the police officers are saying that, but this isn't happening for some of these families, what can be done then if they don't believe that this is actually going on?
Well, first and foremost, I don't care what someone said. I don't want nobody to care what I say, because what's true is in your actions. What you say can be anything. Now, Wetzel can get up there and tell you about how they do it, but Wetzel can go back and look at Brennan and see, and so how Brennan do it, and Brennan will not match what Wetzel is saying.
Right.
It's totally different. So it's in the actions. You know, a lot of people say a lot of things, you know, and want you to believe it. You know, they say perception is reality. But when you got somebody dead and missing, reality is reality. You know, so this is too serious to just be talking. And that what makes it more grave. So that's why I wanted to be frank here today, because I wanted to open a conversation that need to be open frankly. And until we do these things frankly, in a frank way, we're going to have many more Dominiques. We're going to have many more mourning mothers, and most of them going to be black and brown.
Do you think this conversation is being talked about enough here in Monroe County?
It's not being talked about at all. Because, like I'm speaking now, because I own my own publication. I own my own newspaper. Lynette Adams on Channel 10 can't speak like I speak. She wouldn't have a job if she speaks like I speak, because she would be telling a truth that would pretty much bring what nobody wants, a metropolitan Rochester, which means that our kids should be going to the same school. We all live in Monroe County. Ain't no nobody living. I mean, a teacher shouldn't be able to come to my school and to teach my kids, and I can't go to this school. See, all these things are remnants of institutionalized racism that have our kids missing, and nobody want to go look for them.
They all play a part in that.
They all play a part in that. It's systematic, and until we get the elephant out the room, and then nothing's going to happen. And the elephant is there. The elephant been there for a long time, and that elephant comes and supposed to protect and serve us every day. That elephant's in the education, in our education, public schools, supposed to give us the right education. But these institutions are failing. Our media is supposed to give us stories that we care about, that reflect the community. We don't get those. We get them on social media. Because these institutions are failed because they fail to change the racial dynamic to be a diversified community, a metropolitan community like it should be, like the Constitution said, it should be.
Yeah.
So until we get that, it's going to be the same way.
Outside of, other than, you know, diversifying newsroom, not only newsrooms, but police stations, what else do you think needs to be done to have people in the community, you know, really take this conversation seriously and start opening more conversations about this so that something can be done?
What we need to do, and what I do a lot on my radio show, and I bring in leaders, shakers, leaders that's currently leading right now, and leaders that's still influential in our community. And I tell the leaders, you got to do this. I bring on several mayors. I bring on several council members. I bring on county legislators. And I said, it's up to you guys. You know, the community will get behind you, but it's our leaders that do not want to remove the elephant out the room. They see what's going on. You know, they see we got crime running all through Rochester. Why we got all this crime running all through Rochester? They see that it's a dynamic. You know, I say all the time that, you know, as we have guys on the police department that growed up in the community, then that guy, when he go down down the street, he'll see Miss Cyril that saw him when he was a little kid going to school. So he could go and say, hey, how you doing, Miss Cyril? This happened on the block last night. Who you think done that? And she would feel more comfortable telling that guy that lived in that community, grew up in that community, what he needed to know to help that community. But that relationship has never been established. Because why? Because we continue to keep the status like the way it was in the 1960s. It's not 1960 no more. It's 2022. And we got to face the fact that we got to come together for our kids, for our community, for Rochester.
Yeah, exactly, because I know, Moselle, you are not alone in this. I've seen other cases recently. I know there's a case right now of the disappearance of Tommy Williams from Rochester, a 26-year-old man. And he, too, his mother's been saying that she's been going through the same things that you have been going through. So what would you say to her and other mothers who might be having this issue with police stations not taking your son's case seriously?
Or any loved ones. I would tell her as a mom, and you know, you said it's been like a couple of months since her son, don't give up. Don't give up. If the police department don't call you or respond, do what you got to do to keep your loved one face out there. You know, keep calling. You know, sometimes they get tired of you calling, but keep calling. If you can get a story, if you can meet somebody like I met Mr. Rodney, talk. Be their voice. And like I told you before, I used to be ashamed, or I won't say ashamed, but I used to be like, oh, well, people are tired of hearing this. But I had to come to realize at the end of the day, Dominique is my child. And the world won't know Dominique unless I be Dominique's voice. And that's what I'm gonna continue to do. So be your loved one's voice. Talk to whoever you could talk to. Reach out, different aspects. You don't need a lot of money because, you know, some people could say, well, I can't do this if I don't have money to be on the news. It doesn't matter. Either they're gonna run it or they're not. But at least you said it. And social media plays a part. Go live, tell your loved one's story. And that's what I had to learn to deal with. I had to forget about what people think or thought or said, and I had to do this for my child. Because as I said before, you'd be surprised how many people go missing that don't even get coverage because in the beginning we're afraid to say what we want to say or do we want to do. But I'm at the point they didn't care, so now I'm going to speak. I'm going to be his voice, and I'm going to say what happened in his case. And Rochester Police Department did not handle my son's case accordingly.
Thank you.
And that's how I feel.
Thank you so much for sharing that and sharing your experience. I know that can't be easy for you, but I truly do believe that you sharing your experience is going to help a lot of other families who might be going through a similar situation as you. And again, thank you so much, Rodney, for giving your insight and, you know, your professional experience and what your troubles that you had reporting on this story. And I think this conversation does need to be started, and that's hopefully what we're doing here today. And I hope that it continues out so that, you know, we bring other children like Dominique home. So that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys both so much again for taking out the time out of your day to travel all the way here to Brockport to have this conversation with me. Moselle, I know you have a foundation set up in Dominique's name to help other families with missing loved ones. So I will try and leave the link to that Cash App for the foundation in the description below. And if you have any information regarding the disappearance of Dominique Holly Grisham, please contact the RPD's Missing Persons Unit at 585-428-6595. And then again, I want to thank our very talented crew who made this production possible. Antonina Tortorello as director, technical director Tyrese Johnson, audio Ethan Stiles, Chiron, Jack, Kamivon. I told you I was going to do this again, Jack. I am so sorry. Floor manager Ashley Barclay, camera Mary Gorman, prompter Ken Sauer. I had that right before I came in here and then it totally lost it. And then also I want to thank my professor Carvin Eisen and our technical director or technical engineer Mike Smith. So thank you all so much for helping bring this production together. And thank you both again so much for
Thank
being
you.
here. I really appreciate it.